From Southern California, this is The Circle of Insight, a show about everything in psychology. Hear the latest in news and views on psychology. Our motto is simple: wherever there is psychology involved, we are there. And now, here's your host of The Circle of Insight, Carlos Vasquez.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have a great show for you. Today, we're going to be exploring the problem of childhood obesity with Dr. Patricia. Dr. Patricia wrote this great book called Fit Kids Revolution. She is the founder and medical director for Dr. Riba's Health Club, a community-based organization designed to prevent and treat nutrition-related health problems in children and their families through a variety of health-promoting programs in California. Dr. Riba attended Boston University School of Medicine and completed her residency in general pediatrics at Children's Hospital of Orange County. Welcome to the Circle, Dr. Patricia.
Oh, hello. Thanks for having me.
Well, this is a big problem. We have 12.7 million children that had obesity in America. That's 17% of the population. Can you tell us a little bit more about this problem?
It's staggering and it's scary because, we look at the long-term complications of obesity, and these children are going to grow up and have a shorter life expectancy than their parents. And it's a preventable disease. And what we're doing is we're so worried about obesity because of those statistics that we're taking these adult concepts that don't work with adults, and we're putting them on children, we're putting them on diets, and we're doing portion control, and we're really messing them up. And so by the time they get to see me, I have children that are up to 400 pounds.
400 pounds?
Yes.
Wow.
And I have so many now over 300 pounds that I only know the names of the ones over 400 pounds off the top of my head. It's a staggering problem. I have a 136-pound 4-year-old in my practice. And I think we just really need to learn how to feed our kids and what nutrition really is. And I think we can make a big impact.
Yeah, in this part one, we're going to discuss more about the negative aspects of obesity. Before we get to that, you were talking to me before the show about some staggering numbers of how many children are obese in Orange County.
Yeah, even with the children living below the poverty level that have CalOptima insurance, there's about 10,000 children that are obese. 10,000. And only a fraction of those ever come through my doors. And I could take them all, but it's hard to identify the problem and get them, to someone that can help. And there are very few resources actually to help them.
Now, how is obesity defined?
Well, we calculate it based on the height and the weight for the age of the child. And so one common problem people hear about this BMI. And so they'll, what's my BMI? And they'll look it online. But for children, their BMI changes with their age because their proportions change. You think about how big an infant's head is compared to their body when they're born, and so forth. And so because of that change, that number, which might be normal for an adult, would be obese for a 3 or 4-year-old. So you really have to look at that BMI for age. And pediatricians are great at screening for this. They know how to screen for this. So if you talk with your pediatrician, where does my child lie? It matters how much they weigh, but also how tall they are. It all factors in. Like I can have a child with very high weight but not off the curve, but they're very short, then they might be obese, and so forth. And that's a screening method. So it's not a perfect method, but it's a good idea to kind of, okay, well, let's look at the diet, let's look at the exercise, let's see what's going on with this family.
And what are some of the major causes of this obesity?
Well, I think we're all a little caught up. I think we're trying to do so much in a day. There's a lot more technology. There's a lot less movement. I think the technology also brings in a lot of stress into children's lives that we don't understand completely. But we do know that, you watch a sad movie, you'll cry, you can get those emotional feelings. So you think about children with violent video games and so forth, taking on that stress. And that stress can really add to having problems with obesity and all other problems in their life, not sleeping enough. Being inactive. A great stress reliever is exercise. Well, if you're not outside playing and you're watching TV or you're playing video games, you're not only taking on that stress from those games and those shows, which have a lot of violence in them, but you're also not getting rid of the stress in a healthy way by climbing those trees and all those things we used to do growing up.
Yeah, the society has changed quite a bit. Yeah. We're a lot more sedentary.
And the foods, they're doing a great job marketing these foods, and you think, well, this has to be healthy. It's a granola bar, it's a yogurt, and when we break things down for families, they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I thought my kid was eating healthy. The commercials look so good. The box has green on it, The big joke right now in our thing is like gluten-free, you know, we talked about there's a gluten-free green beans. Well, green beans never had gluten in them, you know, but it's like we're trying to market these things to be, I mean, green beans are very healthy, but it's just interesting how they're trying to use things to market foods to us that are not necessarily healthy.
And that's a big problem. You're right. The television, marketing, all those guys are really causing a big problem for the kids.
Huge. It's huge.
What do you think about these? A lot of these products now, they're inundated with commercialization. So they have Disney characters, have other characters on them, making it even harder for children to eat. And you were mentioning something. They look healthy, but they're not healthy. Anything that stands out for you?
I think like flavored yogurt. So everybody thinks, you know, they see these beautiful models having flavored yogurt, like strawberry 99% free yogurt, you know, and they look fantastic. You just finished a Pilates workout or whatever. But I look at the ingredients and I see 5 or 6 teaspoons of sugar in one of those little things
5 or
of
6
yogurt,
teaspoons
of sugar.
Wow.
And so we really try to like recommend plain yogurt because yogurt is good that it has the good bacteria in and so forth, that it's got some calcium and some protein. But the big thing is not to have that added sugar. So we end up just doing the plain yogurt and adding our own fruit. And then my little secret weapon to make it taste like those brands is I put in some unsweetened applesauce. It sounds gross, but you can make it taste like those brands that put the 5 or 6 teaspoons of sugar in it, and it doesn't. So that's what we do.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
Now, we've talked a little bit about the causes. We know there's a psychology involved too. So before I get to future implications, we'll probably hit that towards the end of this part 1. What are some of the psychology that you've discovered over the years of doing this?
Well, it's staggering. Children that are obese, there's more depression, there's more anxiety. They have a 4 times more impaired school performance.
4 times?
4 times more
Wow.
impaired. And then you look at their quality of life, and they've done studies, and they've asked children about their quality of life, and obese children will answer the same way as a child with the diagnosis of cancer or that are in chemotherapy. And then you think about the number of children that are obese, and you think, wow, that's why we're going to have such a long-term effect if we don't get on top of this.
Yeah, it's going to be a big problem for the future.
Yes.
Big problem.
And then what are we doing with these kids? We're trying to shame them into thinness and don't eat so much of this and have more of that, instead of building that self-esteem and really doing a good job at the grocery store, making sure there's healthy foods around them and just letting kids be kids.
So parents are also going through something psychologically, it seems. It seems like it's a lack of education maybe on nutrition. And there's also I think you mentioned earlier, a lot of stress, a lot of things they're doing. They're really busy in life. These are the 2 key factors that you see in regards to parenting.
It's huge. It's huge. And back to technology, I'll be sitting, at a restaurant, and I'll see these moms with these beautiful children all dressed up out at a restaurant, and mom's doing Facebook on her phone. It's like, no, bond with your child, talk with them, be with them, but we're all just trying to do so much in a day. And so, and that's why
Facebooking with their child.
Yeah, well, and so that's why I wrote my book, because I can only see so many in the office. But if they can get some resources and to get them back just to the basics, their children will be healthy, and that's the whole goal.
That's a wonderful program. Something we definitely need. Let's talk a little bit more about the future implications of this. So, what happens when these children are obese? Let's say at age 7 or 8, they continue on that trend. What happens to them as they get older?
Well, for me, what I'm seeing, I'm seeing this even in, I had a 2-year-old with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So, which is
2-year-old.
A 2-year-old. I have had an 80-pound 3-year-old, 134-pound 4-year-old. I
criminal.
mean, well, it's
Wow.
it's not. These families did great. They didn't know any better. But the problem is that all these things that I learned in medical school that were adult problems, like sleep apnea, like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, like diabetes and heart problems, we're starting to see those symptoms in children that are young. As like I said, I mean, very young children they store fat in the middle of their body.
Sure.
And, the skin's the biggest organ in the body. The second biggest one is the liver. And so if they're storing fat in their liver, in that central part, then the liver doesn't quite work right. And it's not like house. You're not going to in liver failure tomorrow. But in 30 years, those children will need a liver transplant. And so you think about a child, 3, 4, 10, 15, developing that 30 years from then needing a liver transplant, it's going to be catastrophic. And that's just the liver. And the diabetes, I mean, the diabetes, you don't feel so badly if you have type 2 diabetes, the ones that is associated with food and weight, not the type 1 where you have to actually inject the insulin. And those kids with type 2 diabetes, they're, it's not how long, it's not, where your sugars are as much as how long you live with the disease. So you think about somebody who's 90 who gets diabetes, who cares? Because they're not going to live, 20, 30 years, or you're going to get the complications. But you get that at 15, at 12. And I start seeing the blackening in the neck. I start seeing the changes in their skin showing that they're going towards diabetes. And we know those kids. And the long-term complications of diabetes are kidney transplants, heart attack, strokes, amputations. And it's just not acceptable.
Pretty scary.
It is. These are very scary things that people are starting to have to deal with at a younger and younger age because of the obesity epidemic.
How about the covert troubles or problems? What I mean by that is you were mentioning children that have these issues, diabetes and liver problems. How about the children that don't have it but are obese? What's their propensity for getting it later?
That's a great question. I mean, it's interesting because I'll have a 400-pound kid that the liver's fine. And then I'll have a child that's only a little bit overweight that has it. So I don't know that I now have the stats for that answer. But I will say, there's other covert things that are happening too with respect to like bullying and self-esteem. And we still don't have a good grasp on those subtle things that nobody's really screening for on their long-term health.
And that problem of bullying, the problem of self-esteem, that's going to increase their cortisol production, which again affects their liver.
The whole thing. I mean,
Really
it's just the whole thing, and you're stressed out, and then you're not sleeping, and then you're not sleeping, and your body's more stressed, and you're going to gain more weight, and it's just this never-ending
cycle. Yeah.
Yes.
Terrible cycle. The issue, does it vary according to ethnicity?
Yes, we definitely see it more in African American children and in Latino families. But it's interesting because I have a group of families that I'm starting to see from the Middle East and from Vietnam where they've left famine and they're coming here, and it's like they were restricted for so long from famine, and then they're picking up these American lifestyles. And so I'm seeing these they're just learning English, they're new, immigrants, and they're struggling with it as well. So it's very interesting to see how things are fluctuating among the different cultures. And typically, I mean, I'm all about just, go back to how your grandparents ate, and you'll probably be very healthy,
Actually, that brings me to my next question in the last few minutes here. Fast food, how big of an issue is fast food?
I mean, it's huge. I think we're all trying to be, everything's trying to be so convenient and so fast, and it's hard to get healthy fruits and vegetables quickly on the go. I mean, the good news is a lot of the grocery stores it's a good place to go get food quickly to go because you can grab fruits and vegetables so much more easily than if you go to a fast food joint, and they can make a sandwich for you, and you can get whole wheat bread there, and there are some things that you can do, if you get things on the go there. There's a few fast food programs that are much better than others. But, I think just sitting down at a table and enjoying a meal together and having those fresh fruits and vegetables in front of the children, it will make a huge difference in the rest of their lives.
That's an interesting point, too. So would you recommend parents eating well as well?
Yes, there's no way. It's like, smoking parents saying you should never smoke. It's just never going to happen. It's like kids they'll do what you do. In fact, there's studies that show that mothers who eat more vegetables, the children tend to eat more vegetables. So if you've got a loathing face when you're biting into broccoli, you think your kid's ever going to have broccoli, and you might not even be serving it, but you really have no leg to stand on that. You got to eat your broccoli. It's just not going to happen. But if broccoli's always around and you enjoy it, and the children aren't pressured and they're engaged with the healthy foods, they will do great.
So minimize the poor snacks and increase the vegetable snacks.
Yes.
All right, that's interesting. Very fascinating. So it takes a family.
It really does.
Change a little bit to Clinton's version there. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Patricia. That was wonderful stuff. Thank you for the insight on that. Hopefully in part 2 we can get some tips on nutrition.
That sounds great.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Remember, our motto is simple. Wherever there's psychology involved, we are there. We'll see you next time, everyone.